live just as he has
He's annoyed
said
you're
something
stealing
that
from
he's
the
not
poor
going
and
to
giving to the
say
rich.
on air.
Oh.
He's not going to say on air. He puts the camera off to one side, and we started 5 seconds late because he wasn't going to say that. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. Here we are.
Don't forget to join Gary's Patreon. You get to connect to the stream 5 minutes before everybody else, and you get all the juicy stuff.
And his OnlyFans. We can't say what happens on his OnlyFans,
No,
right? But you
no,
really
no.
want to be involved. Or you might not be, to be honest.
Oh, no. It involves origami. Well, where should I start? I'll start because in the image I used today, it has that I think it's Doosan. I can't remember, but I was looking at a frame today and blown me down if Ian hasn't got a video reviewing the thing, and it's got the teardrop shaped arms. And I got to wonder, and here's Richard. Hello there, Richard. We've only just started.
Talking about the Hexoon, Gary?
Hexoon, that's what I meant to say. And I just wondered, would that make any? Because I've actually been doing a little bit of flying, more than I've done in a long time. And I wonder if those things make any difference.
No, once you start moving forward, they'd become stalled airfoils and huge amounts of drag.
Well, there we are. That is exactly the answer. I'll
put it down.
Yeah. There we are. No, that's why I was going to ask the question. That's exactly
what I will say on the airfront. They are very nice and rigid, and they do make the frame really quite rigid compared to, say, round tubular arms. You get a bit more strength in them. I can't comment on the aerodynamic efficiencies because I haven't flown this yet. Actually, I'm waiting to get the build done. But it does have the teardropped arms. They are insanely rigid. It makes the copter one of the most rigid sort of 450 frames. You know, I'd stand on it. I'm not going to do that because I'll break it. However, it makes you feel like it's strong enough to stand on.
Brand new.
You mean it's more rigid than the original flame wheel? My goodness.
Well, anything's more rigid than the original flame wheel.
Yeah, I'm amazed. There's a couple of flame wheels in our press with hello FPV Pilot 101 with Locals Invent Drone recently. It's like, oh no, it's a bloody flame wheel. And the university that had them said that. Anyway, but that's an aside. Because then my next thought regarding that frame and those other sorts of things was, I wonder if we could actually build or what could we build for the price of the new DJI Mavic 3? Could we get close to all the if the price is true? It's a lot of money. You could probably build quite a sensible machine.
I've been sent pricing from a dealer, so I have pricing in my hand, which I believe is fully correct. Although at the end of the day, these things shift around. 1879 in the UK for the basic model, 2.5 for the Fly More, and 4.3 Nyon for the Pro. Cine, not Pro. I call it the Pro, but it's the Pro Cine Black Edition Ultra. Version 9, whatever.
Free range, organic, gluten free.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what it's like. But over the years, they've done all of these names. And yeah, we'll know Friday. I think it'll be a very good product. If I'm honest, I actually think they haven't failed on the Mavic line yet. The Mavic line has almost been their crown in their jewels. And there's been little issues here and there. But for the most part, the Mavic line has been not only extremely successful as a product, but actually probably the best consumer drone on the market, period. That's it. No one can get near it. It just does a great job. There's always more. We will always want better cameras. We will always want some improvements on the image quality. But the reality is, compared to Phantoms that used to like to fly away and stuff like this, those issues are unheard of on these aircraft. They just work. And that's down the whole Mavic line as well.
So you don't think we have to start or we wouldn't get better bang for buck if we built our own system?
I don't think you'll get near it. Even at the $4,000, even there's been a lot of talk over that high price, and what people have to understand is what they're getting for that. There is licensing involved, which has to be paid for that firmware to get that access to that ProRes. There's the SSD costs, which are higher today than they were a year ago. Still marginal, and then there's the smart controller you're bundling with it as well. It isn't terrible when you break the pricing down compared to everything. It's a lot of money, and not everyone should buy it, but it's not out of order, if I'm honest.
Well, we
is,
know you as being the greatest DJI shill on this chat, and you are the #1 fan of all things DJI, and will never say anything against them ever in any way. So I can only expect that sort of thing from you.
Yeah.
How are you getting on with that camera, then, Ian?
I didn't buy a camera, Gary. I bought a hand warmer, and it comes with a free camera. It is here. And the controversy, it's on charge at the moment, and it is genuinely warm because it's on charge. I could tell you, actually, it was the thermometer. But yeah, no, I've spent some time. It should have gone back by now, and I'm in this weird position where I bought this with the full intention of keeping it because I bought it with the insurance. Now that insurance is non-refundable, so even if I return the product, I lose the insurance. So that is my sort of baseline of where my intention was at. I'm not going to spend 50 quid on insurance if I wasn't going to keep it. I was genuinely very annoyed, and that's where that video came from, and that was the annoyance as a consumer. And I'll be open here as I was everywhere else. I bought it with part cash and part remaining DJI credit from when I had part of the affiliate scheme. So, if I'm going to slate companies for not being open, I've got to make sure I am being open myself. So it's not all cash. However, I was annoyed because, and I'm not even really annoyed at DJI as such. I'm annoyed at reviews that glossed over this issue. And that's what I'm annoyed at. And look, at the end of the day, DJI's marketing material didn't say the problem. That's bad on them. Okay. And it's not a problem. It's a behavior. Okay. Let's label it properly. It's a behavior. It's not a fault. It's an inherent behavior based on the compromises of the design. But every review glossed over this, and for the most part, but there were hints in it. And that's where I did my looking first. Because funny enough, it was on its way. It was coming that day, and I watched like another 2 reviews, and I started picking up things in the reviews. I don't know if Bruce did the same when you start watching them. You just sort of think there's something in this, and that's why one of the first things I did was go for the temperatures, because it was like, I want to look more at this. There's something ringing bells here, and that it was, and that's what I'm annoyed at. I'm annoyed that we're in a position where the industry isn't being as clear and open with people as it should be, and that's the drone press, and we've got to learn to grow up. And I classed myself as part of that as well. And, Bruce has always been very open on everything. And if anyone watches the camera press, they're very clear on, if it's pre-production, if it's current. And I think we need to get to that stage now, as rather than, I've been sent this shiny product that I've had for a month. Well, okay. So is it pre-production? Is it final production run? Is it release firmware? Is it not? All of this now needs to be put out there. So when consumers buy it, they're not left feeling like this when they pick it up and go, well, no one told me about that. And the funny thing was, everyone was saying I'm holding it wrong. And that's a comment that dates back to the old iPhone issues with the antennas. So anyone who remembers when the Apple had the problem with the antenna gate, it was, you're holding it wrong. Well, it's a camera. I expect to be able to use it for whatever I need to use a camera for. If the marketing material said, you know what, we've made it really small, really light, but that comes with a compromise that it gets quite hot and it may not fully record indoors, I'd have been 100% happy. But that's not what the paperwork said. And that's where my issue is.
Ian, the whole thing's funny.
Are you saying that the product's not safe to use?
No, it's below the temperatures. That's part of why it's shutting down, because they're in the UK and Europe, we have some regulations around surface touch temperatures for controls, and the American market, it has a high temp option. And in the UK, it doesn't. They've limited that. And the reason they've likely limited that is because they can't get near that touch temperature. The issue here is the product in this environment here will turn itself off anywhere between 3 and 10 minutes. Okay, depending on your temperature, the mode you stick it in. Nowhere in any of the marketing was that ever said.
Did it say it was geofenced? Is what it's
No.
also you're also
It's
saying
in the
it's
manual, but it was not
Oh, is
clear
it?
that it was buried in the manual that this option isn't available to all regions, which is the option to turn on the high temperature mode, but it wasn't clear. And again, I have less of a problem with DJI. My biggest gripe is with all of the reviews that just didn't mention it.
Did you notice they didn't send it out to the usual critical reviewers? They sent it to the shills. I think they learned their lesson with the FPV drone. Don't send it to anyone who can review it. Just send it to the ones who are going to say nice things.
I've had 1 or 2 creators reach out, and everyone's great people, and a couple have said, "Look, we're not getting this. Ours is not doing this. We weren't getting that," and that's fine. But they didn't make it clear what they had was a pre-production model. And I think that's where the growing up needs to be here, because a lot of creators have been bitten by this. One camera channel had to put a second video out saying, "I didn't lie. I just don't see those problems." So a couple of other people have been bitten by this as well. And it could have all been avoided with just more clarity. And it's not the first time camera manufacturers have done this. There's been bait and switch over the years more often than not, where manufacturers send them something with pre-release firmware that masks the issue, and then the release firmware is a different thing. But it is what it is. There's been a lot of noise. It primarily affects UK and Europe users because they don't have the option to that high heat. Their website still doesn't make it clear enough for me. I personally think DJI should go further than they have. They've said it overheats in one mode. It's not quite correct. It overheats in all of the modes in the right conditions. They should just simply say, indoor use with static airflow, the camera may overheat. That's it.
Ian, if it overheats in a number of modes, isn't that, and they haven't declared that, doesn't that mean it's a defective product?
Well, I think it questions, you would, in the UK, you could return it under not fit for purpose. It's not as it was sold. And I think that's where a lot of people have done. I've seen a number of people say this is going back, and again, no one question, a couple of people have said, well, what do you expect? Well, I understand there's a compromise with the design. We all understand that. Most of us here, some of us are engineers, Richard's a barrister. We all understand that there's a point of diminishing returns on technology. And if there's a limitation because of the size, that's great. But you've got to tell us. You can't just sell it as capable of everything else. And when the user finds it actually isn't. And that's the problem.
Yeah, well, the product's got to meet its description, isn't it? Ultimately, and for me, I'm wondering, much like we've seen around batteries previously not performing and being an issue, are we actually dealing with some kind of defective product? I think this is a classic around innovation, isn't it? Sometimes they want engineers to push out a product, well, the engineers do. That's 100% correct all of the time, but the business is saying, let's just get the product out there when it's about 95% correct. And then we'll work on the 5% once we've got it in the marketplace. And I don't know if that's a situation here at all, obviously, but what one can easily envisage that could be a reason why we're seeing these kind of issues.
I think they've made it so small that the heat was always going to be a problem in this size.
Yeah.
There's no way to make something this small and deal with that heat easily. The design is compromised because of physics as we're at today. It's not that they've done something bad, they've done something wrong. The limit is how small they've made it. Now, what they could have done is made it 30% bigger, and I think most people would have been happy. But if they're going to make it that small, then they should have publicized that size comes with limitations. And that's the issue here. It's not, I have less issues with the fact it overheats, because at the end of the day, as long as people know, you make your choice. You spend your money and you make your choice.
Right. Yeah.
However, what happened was a bunch of us ordered this on day one, and I'm not alone. There was probably 20 of us in the UK and Europe, independent people who got it, and were like, whoa, this is very different to what was being said. And that's where the noise is.
Yeah. What about if you put it in water? It's got
fine.
10-meter depth, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll go in. And that's the funny thing, you know, if you use it indoors, well, not indoors, in a static situation without airflow. Now, a lot of people were arguing, well, it's not designed for that. It's an action camera. And then my argument is, well, show me where the paperwork says I can't use it indoors. Then you go on the website where all the marketing materials show someone filming themselves in a gym, someone filming themselves from inside their car. So you can't say you're holding it wrong. Is that, you know, and again, if it's only for outdoor use, put it on the marketing. Tell us before we buy it. And that's the problem.
Wearing my engineer's hat, they could have doubled the surface area of that cube by putting some 1 millimeter or 2 millimeter deep fins in the aluminium, and it would have changed the style slightly, but it would have made it fantastically more usable, because if you double the surface area, you're going to get much longer use time out of it before it overheats. Again, as Ian says, it's style over function, and that's a flaw in the design.
Yeah, you know, that's the issue. They took the design. You know, this looks like it's been designed to sit on a shelf. It looks really nice. It really reminds me of the 2013 to 15 MacBooks, where Apple took the design over usability too far. They removed all of the ports. They made it slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. They put the smaller keyboard on, and it wasn't really good. And the irony is Apple are going the other way. And look, it is extremely well made. It is extremely well designed. There's some really great features, outstanding image quality. The Rocksteady actually image stabilization is much better than I anticipated. The audio is really good, one of the best audios I've had on an action camera. But it's like having a sports car with the fastest engine in the world with no seats, because you can't drive it. And that's the problem. And again, it's about clarity. If they'd have just
is it value? I can get a whole box of fire starters for $2 down at the supermarket.
You know, Bruce has said it could have been 10% bigger, more surface area, and this problem probably wouldn't have existed, and most people would have said nothing bad about the design, because it's still much smaller than any of the others, isn't it, Bruce? There's nothing really that is double the depth of this, isn't it? So you know, yeah, it could have been 30% deeper, more surface area, and the problem would have gone away.
So we're not all rushing out to buy them then.
But if you are rushing out to buy one, there are links in Ian's video, affiliate links in the description. You can go and buy through them and give him a little bit of coin. That's a good thing to do.
We're in trouble now. Now we can talk about Gatwick.
It's not terrible. And actually, I will say, I think it's got a home in FPV. Not for everyone, but I do think it's got a home there. But like everything,
only for the obscenely rich.
Only if they need rich. Yeah, but people buy £400 GoPros and strip them, Bruce.
Yeah, but look at the price. What is it, $400 or something?
That's this one. You can get it for $325.
That's 4 times the price of this, which does 70% of what that does. I mean, look at the value equation. I'm re-reviewing this.
What's your one called, Bruce?
It's called the RunCam 5. Probably can't see that, but it's RunCam 5, and it is a 4K camera with image stabilization, which weighs about 50 something grams, which has a removable SD card, so you can get as much recording time as you like. You can power it from the micro USB port, so you can you don't have to worry about the internal battery limitations. There's a lot of bonuses and benefits to this, but link in the description. But I'm going to do a re-review, because in light of the GoPro, I just want to do a comparison, a value comparison, not a performance comparison, because this will not deliver the kind of footage that the DJI or a GoPro will. But for the price point, is it worth spending $110? And Louis got an Insta360 because he's old school.
So Bruce, one quick question. Your RunCam will last more than 6 minutes recording indoors, won't it?
Yes, I get almost 90 minutes recording indoors with this. It doesn't even get warm. The hottest part is the color.
Oh, very good. He's here all week, and Lou.
It won't disappear in the grass when you crash, or if you crash into a bank of a river like Ian tries to, you won't lose it.
Bruce, you're not on commission, are you? Do you want to disclose?
No affiliate links in my descriptions, mate.
The sales pattern then was absolutely spot on.
It was. So it's been an interesting few days.
Well, you're just off more Christmas card lists, aren't you? That's the bottom.
Yeah. Someone sent me a picture, something quite funny, was someone driving past a little bridge and throwing a bottle on fire behind the Simpsons one of just burning some more bridges. And look, at the end of the day, people ask me to give an opinion, and at the end of the day, my opinion isn't any more valid than anyone else's. But it is an opinion I'll give on a product if I pay my own money for it, or if it's sent to me to review. And I'm not saying anything that's wrong. I'm not saying anything that's incorrect. People can argue the use case, and they can say, well, you shouldn't be using it indoors, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, the product isn't really delivering what users need from it, and that's the issue. But we will see. You never know. They might be able to do something in firmware. I do have a concern about that. Yes, they could do something in firmware, but that's just going. You could cripple it in firmware and reduce the bit rate and do some stuff like that and bring the heat down. But we don't want that.
You're holding it wrong.
Oh no, I don't want to be updating firmware on my phones left, right, and centre, or cameras as well as everything else. You just don't need that in life.
The funny thing is the geofencing you mentioned
firmware. Come on, you guys forget that Bruce still uses his OpenTX from 1991. So
that's
I'm proud of it.
The funny thing was the geofencing, because when I got it, I had the option to unlock the high heat mode, but the second I connected it to the app and it knew I was in the UK, it took that option away from me.
Now, when we were talking about DJI cameras just last week, I think it was, I did say they would be geofenced. I think I was right.
Yeah.
Well, because it's not GPS based, then it's
no, it's based on the app, because it doesn't have GPS in it, so it has to do it. The only way it will know where it is, because what they're saying is it needs to have that limit in the UK, but it doesn't add it until you activate and connect it to the app, and then it enforces the rules for your region, basically.
So geofencing is for what reason?
Well, it's not geofencing, but it's they take the option away. We labeled it a geofence, but they took the option away.
Regional specific options.
Regional specific option, yeah.
Use a VPN.
Yeah,
well, it's not
on an app. That's the well. I could try that actually.
Yeah, VPN would work.
Yeah, should we do it live?
Try it.
Yeah.
Trouble is, it already knows where you live. It probably will say, no, you're just trying to fool us.
What about if you've got a foreign SIM card in your phone?
It'd be an interesting one, wouldn't it? Yeah. I'm trying to. Is there VPN apps for phones? I haven't actually checked.
Yeah.
The thing is, it only disappears that option when you reconnect to the app. Why do you need to connect your phone to the app? Can't you just take the SD card out?
You have to activate it. And
but once you've done that, you let it run down and it rebooted. It did a power reboot because the battery
came back. Now I haven't got it to do it since, but you could then leave it and keep it. Yes.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't get the app.
Osby Drone's got it. It's not a restriction. It's a safety feature.
Yeah, because of the hot touch, as Ian said earlier, for America.
Yeah, for us.
So you have to connect to that.
There's a law in the UK that there's service temperatures on types of controls of devices, cookers, ovens, anything that gives off heat. And
how the hell do you cook something when the surface temperature is 40 degrees?
That'll be hot.
Well, I did laugh. I don't know if you guys saw this. One guy reviewed it and he says it does get hot and put cheese on the top and it melted.
Oh, really?
I did
bonus feature.
Someone put a fried egg on it. Someone put an egg on it. I want someone to put an egg on it. Fry an egg on it.
Ian, did you have to log in to activate it then? Did you have to put in all your credentials and everything else? So so they've got your data in order to activate.
DJ know exactly where I am. Yeah. That Christmas card light's on fire somewhere right now. Look, I'd love to work with them again on any future products they want to release. I'm not sure that will happen. But I will be fair where I'm fair. I'll be honest, if that had been sent to me when I involved the beta guys, I would have gone, you really can't send that out. That would have been my comments, because they're gonna rip you apart.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I wonder how many are in the wild at the moment.
They've sold well. I think a few people have bought them. They'll be sending them back.
We're going to find out soon, aren't we? We're going to find out very soon what the real story is. It's just incredible. They've got it out in time for Christmas. It'll make enough of a noise, and but
it's more to come this week, with the Mavic, and I do genuinely think the Mavic will be solid, but based on history, I think that will be quite the product.
So that means Ian, that you have the Cine edition with you, the Mavic 3 Cine edition.
I won't be getting that. I am hoping to borrow one.
Borrow permanently.
No, I have a dealer who has very kindly offered to send me one.
dealer. Your Honour.
I would be yours.
Yes.
Yeah, would you like some gear, sir?
Yeah.
I have an offer you cannot refuse.
This is
fir-
hot
the
right
fir-
now.
The first one is free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I have got a dealer who's going to try and help me out, because it ain't going to come from DJI, that's for sure.
What's the maximum takeoff mass of this 3? Do we know?
We've got the specs. We'll probably check that.
900.
900 and something grams.
Is it the maximum takeoff mass, or is it the takeoff
think
mass?
that's the
Because you
takeoff
could load
mass.
it up. Remember, and it's, the
Sorry,
rules
Louis,
in
what did you say?
EU have got MTW, don't they? MTM, that which is silly because you could load it up so it only just lift off the ground. That's the maximum takeoff mass. Whereas under normal flying operations, it may be less than half that.
So that'd keep it in the A1 category, won't it?
I forget
If it's
what weight.
900.
I thought it was over
900
A1. I thought it was into A2, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was A2 as well
Is
for
it
some
900
reason.
grams or over?
If it's over 900, then it goes into A2. If it's below
Yes.
900, it's A1.
I believe it's
There's a
above
speculation.
900.
Yeah.
I
The
thought it was
speculation
tad
is
over.
it's gonna come.
This is
it's
in the
gonna come
A4.
with the,
This is A4
an
category. This
A4.
one.
Yeah. Very
To
good.
be
yeah.
honest, right, I've come to the conclusions that the C rating system is just it's not really fit at all. It's not a good thing at all in any way, shape, or form. Because if you're like myself, I believe Richard and Ian, if you hold a CA operation authorization, the C ratings mean sweet FA anyway to us. We can just keep flying what we want well beyond 2023, and we can fly up to 25 kilos. So the C ratings for me, everyone's banging on about them. As far as I'm concerned, they mean nothing to me. And you have to keep that horizontal separation. And if you've got if you're flying at 30 meters high, and you've got to have that 30 meters radius from uninvolved people, it's a nightmare when you're flying, because you're flying in this cylinder that's 60 meters across. You can't do that in towns and cities without coming across someone that's that's uninvolved. You're going to come across them. So to me, it's pointless. The specific category that I fly in, Richard and Ian, where we can overfly, that's the win. If anyone thinks the A2C of C is amazing and C rating is going to be able to make us fly in better places, no, it's not. It's not all it's cracked up to be.
But
to be honest.
by having a C rating on the machine officially, properly done, rubber stamped, it gets rid of an element of uncertainty in your business,
Well,
perhaps.
here's-
Worried
here's-
about it.
But here's the thing: if you've got, if you fly under Article 16 for hobby, and remember, hobby, so you're not using it commercially. The only difference is it would allow you to fly commercially. If you fly under Article 16 in a park, you can overfly people at 30 plus meters. Yeah, it can be an old aircraft. The C ratings they're not bringing anything new to the game, really, because if they turn around and go, oh, legacy, we're going to say the Mavic 2 Pro now fits, for example, into is going to be C2 marked for legacy. That machine's been around for years, and it's a fantastic bit of kit, and it's one of the best that I've flown. I don't C ratings do not bring any decent thing to it. It's not.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that's one of the things people are touting, that it's going to be the first C-rated thing. So that would give them a marketing boost
advantage,
if that were the case.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with that. I think if they are CE rated, that's certainly going to give them that boost, because they'll be one of the first into the market space with that. I think
no way to do it in the UK. There's no way.
Sorry?
How do you actually get an aircraft C rated?
I don't know,
How
but if
do you
anyone
actually
can,
do that?
DJI could.
It would have to be waterproof for a start, wouldn't it?
Can a manufacturer literally go, okay, I'm going to give it a C
I've
rating?
got that, Bruce. Don't worry.
Well, some of the CE rating, I think, is defined in the initially EASA regulations, aren't they?
It doesn't. Remember, we're talking about UK regs, but it doesn't say where you send it to get it certified.
All DJI drones are C-rated. They are all China.
already.
Export, yeah.
Yeah, for export, they're all CE rated anyway. We're talking about the actual C marking for the actual aircraft classification, if you like, the A2, C2 aircraft. That's C marking. How you get your aircraft actually C marked?
You can have CCCP Oh, that's the old one.
Stop
That's the
Russian
old Soviet
things.
Union.
Stop Russian things. But who
Maybe
actually allocates that? Who says this is a C1, C2, C3? Is it an arbitrary, like you can say for yourself, this is
I
like
believe
it's
it's an
compliant?
honor.
it's an honor system of the manufacturers. They
Well, that
comply
counts me out.
with certain rules. Come on, that's self-regulation.
Well, let's move away from that. Let's move to the real reason Richard's here. Let's move on to an interesting thing that happened in South Yorkshire. I'm not sure when it happened, but within the last
It's
week.
happened
Anyway,
twice.
not once but twice. And that happening is a journalist or press photographer was taking some images. I don't know what of. I think again, Richard knows more about this than I do. And the police wanted to take his machine away from him and stop him filming. So, do you want to pick it up, Richard? Because you know more about this than me.
Yeah, sure, Gary. I haven't. I disclose now. I haven't seen all the evidence in the papers. So for me, this is just a preliminary view. But it seems to me that we're at odds again with the affirmative action that the police have taken in respect of this particular drone pilot. And what's from what I've seen certainly in the public domain is that we've had a confiscation of a memory card from a drone, and this was following a request to ground the drone. Now, we've talked about this a number of times about police powers and how they've now substantially increased because of the Air Traffic Management and Unmanned Aircraft Act that we now all have to abide by. And if a police officer is going to ground a drone, then they've got to have reasonable suspicion that something nefarious was taking place. And by nefarious, I mean, for example, we're in contravention of the ANO Article 240 or 241, or in the way that this act was formed was on the basis that we're all drug smugglers and we're using our drones to smuggle contraband into prisons, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Oh, bugger! I've been caught again.
Talk to Ian's dealer.
Yeah, Ian's dealer. It's all there.
I'm sure he doesn't have just one.
Yes.
So it was all based on that. So the drone got grounded. I don't understand the circumstances of how that happened or why. Whether it was in a safety distance or within a landing takeoff site or whatever it may be. I have no information around that. But I do understand that again we're on the edge of a cordon area. So when we look at flying within, where he was flying was on a cordoned police area, which was a crime scene, as I understand it, was a crime scene, as I understand it. So he was on the edge of that. So he wasn't. And we talked last time about flying within or close to an emergency response team or unit, and what that means. Close to or inside areas is the wording used within the general offence number 8, as it's known, and that's whilst an emergency response effort is ongoing. And we talked about what does emergency mean, and we're talking here about prevention of loss of life, damage to property or serious damage to property, and also interfering within an emergency response. And clearly what we've got here is a cordoned area, a crime scene that's been totally sealed off and locked off. Was it an emergency response at that time? I don't know, because I don't know. I haven't seen any timings or anything like that to conclude otherwise. Conjecture would say no, not really at the moment. And also, if you're outside of the cordon, the point about the cordon, and this is what I thought was quite interesting, the cordon is only ground based. At what point does it become air based to influence a restriction on the flying zone? And the police can put in an emergency restriction on flying, as we all know, and we've seen it up here near Glasgow, but that's then promulgated through the AIS. So suddenly what you might see in the future, I don't know, is a crime scene and a notification or a NOTAM going up saying you can't fly within the crime scene. Who knows? But the point is, can the police actually now say, ground your drone because you're on the edge of a cordoned area? My view is, if it was me, I'd say no, because you can't stop me from flying in airspace that's a state asset unless I myself am satisfied I'm not conducting my flight safely. Because, for example, there could be a helicopter coming in or something like that, right? So we've got that piece going on in and around this situation. And then we have the drones put into the pilot's car. The car's locked. Okay, now there are powers under the Act to be able to search vehicles, but there's some hoops that I think the police officer has to go through before he can do that. And the whole reason why that came about was because if you take your mind back to the drug smuggler in prisons, throws a drone or the contraband in the car, they need to be able to get it. And that's what this is all about. Right? So it's now about using these powers that are for those people that are absolutely, deep involved in criminal activity, now being used against a drone pilot trying to do an honest day's work. So suddenly we now have the situation where, well, I'm not taking the drone, but what I am doing is seizing the memory card with all of the information on it. Now, this isn't just about seizing a memory card. This is about seizing the data as well. And as we know, as drone pilots, drones are just a sexy way of capturing data. The true value in what we're selling is the data, whether it's a topo of something, a roof survey or a crime scene or 3D mapping. Well, that's what we're selling. We're just qualified to gather it in such a way that's just fun. That's why we all get into this space, right? But the point is here is that, well, hang on a minute. Why has the police officer now requested to have the memory card out of the drone? And can they actually do that? And I was told, and I've seen on the, sorry, I wasn't told, I've seen on the social media chat that they've referred to the Police and Criminal Evidence Act around this. So I've done a bit of digging around that, as one might expect, Gary. And the whole seizure around Police and Criminal Evidence Act is on the basis that the police officers are on premises. And to get on premises, you need a search warrant. And within the Air Traffic Management and Unmanned Aircraft Act, they do have the power to search premises, but they have to get a warrant first. And there's case law on this. If the police come and go onto your property, they can actually commit a trespass if they don't have a warrant.
How long does it take to get a warrant? Is it a matter of asking the sergeant and he says, yes, go ahead? Or is it go to a court and get a grown-up to say, yes, you can do that?
My impression is, and I could be wrong on this, it's been some time since I was involved in the criminal area of law, but my understanding is if they need to get a warrant, it has to go through a certain number of hoops within the police station itself, and possibly be ratified by a judge, especially if it's a warrant that's needed, say, within the hour or whatever, and that's usually, in my understanding, for national security type situations, okay, or terrorism offences or something like that. But here we've got a situation where I'm not entirely clear on. I don't know if the person was actually arrested, was given a caution and said, we're arresting you on suspicion that you have been flying in contravention of, and therefore we're seizing your property. What I understand is that it was seized under the Police Criminal Evidence Act, which is not quite right as far as I can see at this moment in time, not having sight of all the facts. Now,
Richard, though, does it matter? Is this just not a game of some copper just trying to find any reason to deal with it there? Does he really care if that card goes back to that guy later? Does he really care if this all gets thrown out? Is this just not a way of dealing with that guy there and then to get him out of the way?
So what it is, I think, Ian, is then dealing with laws that they're familiar with, which is the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, because they're not familiar with the Air Traffic Management and Unmanned Aircraft Act, which is what we've spoken about before. How are police getting trained up on all of this to recognize what these issues are? And it does matter, because here on this particular instance, we're talking about a memory card with some data on it. That clearly was of concern to the police, because they weren't letting the pilot go until they had that memory card. So are we now talking about some form of unlawful detention of that person because they weren't arrested? So now we're talking about liberties, and we're talking about a freedom of information, and we're talking about a number of things here potentially. And then if we were to follow that through, how do you get your card back? Well, in the first instance, what one has to do, and I have looked into this, is we have to make a claim via potentially with the police force itself first, and we do that under. Give me one moment. I'm just checking to make sure I've got it right. Under the Police and Criminal Evidence. No, it's not that. It's an old act of law. It goes back years. Yeah, the Police Property Act, 1897. So this is the power to make orders with respect to property in possession of the police. So you'd write to them first of all, saying, "Look, police officer, you've taken my memory card without the jurisdiction that you need. You've taken my memory card without alleging any offence under any act. You haven't demonstrated why you've got lawful authority to take the memory card. Therefore, I want it back. If you don't give it back to me, now I'm going to sue you for loss because that data on that memory card is essential to my business, for example. Give it back." They don't give it back. We then put an application into the magistrate's court, and that's where it goes now.
So that act is unlikely to have mentioned SD cards directly, given its age. But surely the fact that the data is time sensitive means that even if he does get it back, he's already incurred the loss. Shouldn't he be suing for that loss anyway?
Correct. But
so this is the second time we've had you on to talk about this sort of a thing. Probably might even be the third, I think. So who's going to be? Somebody surely has got to be the first case to take this one off the trial, to put it to bed once and for all.
That's why Richard's doing this pro bono.
Well, we're going to have Richard on here. He's going to be on here every couple of months saying the same thing.
Yeah, well, potentially. But what we're talking about here is actually what we need is. Yeah, I said this when I was, when this bill was going through the House of Lords to members of the House of Lords. I said, you've got this huge training requirement that you've now imposed on the police, which is somewhat unfair. But because you've now made it law, the state has an obligation to enact it and enforce it, but to do it properly. Well, that's why we are all familiar with. Misappropriation of justice or maladministration when it comes to justice. And that's why we have civil claims against the police, for example. Because we're not going to correct that overnight. This is going to be a real education piece, to your point.
But, with all the restrictions that lately have been done to everyone about the pandemic and all that, isn't that a minor issue? And also, if one enables the live broadcast from the drone, couldn't that be a mute case?
I think the live broadcast is going to be an interesting point. I mean, it's out there then, isn't it? It's done. What could they do? What could the police do if you're outside of the cordon? And and you've got the new Mavic with an incredible zoom rate on it. You could be way outside of the cordon.
Well, so what's the story in terms of, did they take the card because they didn't want that data getting out, or did they take it so they could then later on review it and see whether an offence was committed? And if it was the later case, surely he should have the option to clone the data before the card is seized.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the purpose or the intent was, you see, and that goes back to what was it around whether or not that person was arrested or cautioned, because that would then give you some indication as to why they required that data. If it's filming a crime scene, they might say, well, actually, that data could be useful to the police force. Okay, if it's useful to the police force, then what I shall do, police officer, is I shall license this to you for a fee.
Do they have the right to delete it, Richard? So let's say they decide.
Oh no, it fell on a magnet.
Oh, yeah. Where do we
That
stand?
wouldn't matter, Gary.
If the data was either accidentally, intentionally deleted, or lost, where do we stand on this? This is the old pulling the film out of the camera, isn't it? Situation more than anything,
Yeah.
You better do an explainer there. Most of our viewers are too young to know what a camera is. So, yeah.
Film me. Come on, film me and
film.
So, as far as I know, under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, there's a whole list of things that the police have to do when seizing data or seizing hardware, and that relates to going onto a premises and raiding it and getting all the computers and everything else. It's got to be documented. We've got to have that chain of evidence, and here that means that evidence has to be maintained in a way that it's not compromised, damaged, or suffers any loss. Because if that was me, if I got my memory card back from the police and it was wiped clean, I said, well, where's my data gone? And it is determined that they wiped it clean. I would go back to whoever I was selling this for as a journalist and say, what would have been the value? Give me an approximate value, please, in writing of what that means. And now I can start to understand what that kind of loss actually is. Like I said, we're talking about data here. What about if it was a topographical survey that was for an architect or something like that could have paid thousands of pounds for, or more, right? That's the value of that data to me as a business. That's what I want back.
Was this person press? Was this person classed as press? He was. So is this not them restricting the freedoms of the press at the end of the day?
Potentially that too, yeah.
Because look, there's nothing to say. So there might be a perception of a drone flying over a crime scene or near a crime scene that they're filming something they don't want them to see. But let's be realistic. Most journalists have big cameras with big lenses that they can see stuff from quite the distance from. So there is a perception here of drones are bad, other camera is good. But if you take that away, they really have no need to take this footage, the footage itself, because it doesn't appear in this situation this was about him flying. Because the fact they wanted the card, that's the odd bit. Why do they want the card, isn't it?
Because it was
kind of the obvious thing, isn't it? It is kind of the obvious thing, though, isn't it? It is, as you said, it's like taking the film out of the camera. They do that in all the movies, so that must be what you've got to do. But is there a process by which we could check that because surely, as you say, Richard, the police officer must have to do, before you can do that, you must have to say this magic incantation, this one, and this one, make this standard, then you can take the card. So would we see anywhere? I wonder if they've got body cameras, but could we pull that information from the police force to see if that sort of chain of command had been followed?
Yeah, so absolutely. So if there is, if certainly if somebody is arrested, you can get all of the reports that the police have that relate to that arrest of that person, and that gets sent to their legal representative, right, in order to make sure that the actual arrest is being carried out properly and in accordance with the law, that isn't unnecessarily restricting somebody's freedoms, and that the police have abided by the law with respect to that. So it is a lawful arrest, right? And that should all be documented. So you'd be quite clear on that. If you dare I say with Louis on the phone, remember the Gatwick pair? They were, incarcerated. So there's massive restriction on their freedom. There's false arrest and imprisonment potentially. I don't know what the claim was about, but we obviously saw it in the press with respect to that. That's taking it to the next level, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Here we're talking about confiscation of equipment. But what if our drone pilot on this occasion said, well, no, you're not having my drone card because, to a point that's being made here, I've got a contract. You're now placing me breach contract. That's going to cost me thousands of pounds, which I can't afford to pay. So you're not having my drone. You're not having my memory card, right? And then we have the situation where, well, what's the police officer going to do? He's now going to arrest you and he's going to confiscate it. And then you're going to go down that road of being incarcerated in some way.
But that policeman must surely have been in the mindset that he could have done that, because that's, there'll be, otherwise you wouldn't have asked for the card in the first place. I'm not putting this very well. So where I'm trying to go is he must have been very strong in his convictions of the powers that he had over the drone operator.
Exactly. The leverage they've got is you either give me the card or you're getting arrested and I'm taking you down the nick.
But to have that, you before you could say that to somebody, you'd have to be certain in your head that wasn't going to unravel into some. Oh, actually, I can't actually do that. Oh, sorry.
So, would it be worth the drone operator going before you touch my kit or anything else? Do you want to talk to the CAA, because I think you're wrong? Do you think that would work? Do you go call the CAA?
Answer the phone at the CAA.
Well,
I certainly think that's an option, but Bobby on the beat isn't going to be familiar with CAA. What Bobby on the beat will be familiar with is, here's a letter from my legal representative that represents me.
Talk about shilling. Link in the description. Tell me, might it not be better for someone
as well?
Might it not be better if someone there is in that situation to actually get arrested, so they've got access to all that data relating to the incident?
To be honest, I would pick up my phone and I'll just go 1 second, and they'll go, "Who are you doing?" I'll go, "I'm calling my barrister." Richard's phone will ring shortly afterwards.
Quite like that, but. Yeah, but as Bruce says, wouldn't you be better off getting arrested to make that chain of evidence live?
It's an interesting point. I mean, that might work for some people, but it won't work for everybody. Getting arrested for some people, it would be a very frightening and
I wouldn't like it.
Be very, very frightening experience. I certainly wouldn't want to recommend that people go down that route. It's certainly one way of challenging the system. I think for the more robust drone pilots out there, they might consider it.
Some of us are used to it.
Get used to it.
Handcuffs, quickly.
I mean, it's when you're in the colonies, that might be the case.
Well, that's going the other way.
It's just when they tase you, that's the unfortunate part. That really hurts.
Yeah.
But there would, so as it stands now, then, so because for argument's sake, he wasn't arrested, but they took his SD card. What sort of evidence would be? There still should be something about taking that card. That's
Correct.
Serious enough, surely, that's great paper.
Yeah, anything they take from you, they've got to record. That has to be recorded.
So really, so that guy basically, what he needs to do is he needs to now go right under that Act of 1897. Go, I want my card back. This is how much the data was worth at the time. I want to put a claim in for that. I want my card back. And if you can't provide any of it, I'm suing you for a damn sight more.
Yeah. I mean,
wouldn't a good lawyer say that data is an ethereal thing, and how could you prove that data was ever on the card? How could you ever prove it was of a nature that was good enough to commercialize?
30 years ago, yes. But
why don't we make it easy? The guy should have a card on hand and give it to the cop.
Given this, yes, the one with those special videos on, yes.
That's asking somebody to be a magician as well as a drone pilot.
Oh, come on. Micro SD cards? Come on, Richard. You know better than that.
If you've got a number of police officers around you that can see one drone in your car and where you can get the memory card from, I think you've got to be a bit of a magician.
Well, this is a good question. I should imagine insurance companies run the other way. But anyway.
I'll have a look, but I'm sure my insurance does give me a certain amount of cover. I'm going to check my insurance.
Do that. Legal cover. Well,
what do you think, Richard? But that won't necessarily help you at that point in time, will it?
No, but it'll help me when I'm arrested.
Don't forget.
It'll pay your fees.
It might do afterwards, right? But generally speaking, legal services cover under insurance policies aren't always getting you the best product in the market, all right? Because we're talking about efficiencies of cost here for an insurance company. So I'd certainly, what you might end up with is a legal expenses cover where somebody's quite used to dealing with contracts, but not necessarily familiar with drone law that leads or bleeds into this area, right? And that's certainly what I've been seeing from some of the drone pilots that phoned me up.
But then are you going to have a letter that costs me 250, 300, 400, 9 bajillion pounds to get from you to say that you're retained to look after my any legal issues I have? Is that how it has to go? As like another insurance letter almost.
It is almost like that, isn't it, Gary? It's that, as we spoke about it before. How do we get to the point where you're going to put the brakes on a police officer when they are absolutely forthright in their mind that you've done something wrong, and all they've been told from the station, do not leave without that memory card.
And this is why Arnold Schwarzenegger is my spotter.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
So how are you going to put the brakes on that? I'm just going to phone up my insurance company. That's not going to work.
You fly on a drone that does not need a memory card.
Live feed.
Then they take the whole drone.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just to clarify, if you've got commercial insurance, you do have a limit of indemnity, so 5 million, and that's including defence costs. So, Richard, your fees, $5 million, mate.
You got 5 million quid to work with, Rich, right? So...
I might be able to conjure something.
What's he going to use tomorrow? Who's going to pay him
that'll
tomorrow?
cover the first hour of consulting.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Andrew, that's a good question from Andrew, actually. Do receipt for the items taken.
I think you should be getting something back from the police.
And Michael, would he have the right to copy the data before handing that over?
If he's not willing to provide a receipt, he provides a selfie holding it with you. That's my argument. So it's stand there, officer. I want a picture of that at the same time, please. Smile. Yeah. Chunk.
Yeah, and I would actually turn my phone onto video as soon as I got the drone down and go, right, I'm going to record this now. What you're saying to me.
You're not going to record. I'm going to post it on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
There's the perfect camera for it, right? As long as it doesn't last more than 3 minutes. So if
you're inside, don't use the DJI new camera. Okay. If it's static air, don't do it.
How long's it going to be until we say, Richard, don't you want to come back and talk about this one? How long is it going to be till we just keep going around and around in this circle?
I do think there's a point where we're getting to the stage as a commercial operator, and actually I would be arguing this in any public-facing business, and I don't mean where you're selling stuff for the public, but where you are operating in an environment where the public may intervene, that wearing an action camera, live loop recording is necessity now. And that's just a reality of the world we're in. And I'd even go as far as to say, if you're flying, you might want to put one on a tripod on loop over there and have one on your chest just so there's two cameras having a look what's going on. And it's a sad fact. But
I mean, if remote ID ever comes in, you'll need that because then you'll have pictures of the people that mug you.
Yeah, but it is the
but
reality.
People will steal that when they mug you. They'll take that recording equipment.
The point there is you're saving for the cloud, aren't you?
Because you got to.
But Richard, sorry. One thing I'm wondering is, I'm surprised you haven't turned this into a bit of a business, because I know overseas quite often you have situations where lawyers set themselves up as a resource, and people pay a monthly fee for a priority access to that resource, which includes an information pack, and then you're sort of on call when they need you. And most of the time, of course, months go by, you just get the money for nothing, but then you provide a priority level. Have you thought of doing this? Is there a link in your description?
There isn't yet. I'm hoping you can help me work one out.
Oh, fantastic!
And don't forget to find a tree for Bruce.
He's the business manager, isn't he?
So when does your Patreon start, Richard, to do this? To do it through Patreon?
Internet
would
lawyer,
work,
the
though, would it?
internetdronelawyer.com. Here we go.
Would that work? Would that work? I wonder. Patreon. I
It
don't
might,
think
might,
so.
you know, I'll even take some cryptocurrency.
But it's a sad fact of if you're dealing outside now, monitoring, having yourself monitored is probably a good idea, whether it be video, whether it be audio, whether it be just something. Because if you think back to that incident that happened with Thing, who came on year before, the attitude changed once he knew there was a camera. And what would have been fascinating in that situation is if there was a camera he didn't even know was there, and that would have showed a very different story, you know. And it's sad, but if I was someone working outside now, I'd probably consider getting myself a couple.
Yeah, I would certainly be looking at having some sort of recording. If I was approached by the police, probably. The problem is, of course, when you get the initial contact, you could be flying.
Yes.
You know,
Should that recording be covert or overt, though? Which would be most useful?
I think that's up to the person. I mean, I couldn't prophesize either way. I mean, it's very subjective, that. But if that was me and I was flying, what I would be tempted to do, if I'm told to request to land the drone, and we have heard of horror examples in other jurisdictions of pilots being tackled, and I would turn the drone around and make sure the camera is pointing down at me as it was coming into land. You know, if you hit the auto land function or something like that, and do it that way, and then you can deal with the police officer. But at least if anything was to happen, you've got some video evidence, and probably leave the drone recording while it's on the ground as well.
Yes, we are carrying.
But then they'll take your
the
SD
card.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, then you're back to that. But at least
remember,
you know.
DJI does back up to the app.
Yeah, go into the app while you're flying.
In China.
The police officer won't know what you're doing. Go into your app while you're landing, while it's coming back. Go and tell it to cache that flight data.
But then we circle back on that other. We circle back to that other issue though, which is so right. It's the pilot's been interfered with or whatever. So when is the CAA actually going to step in and say, "Well, hang on, you can't do that"? Or when is a representative body?
They won't. They won't. It's now a criminal investigation.
Yeah.
But it's interfering with an aircraft. You can't interfere with an aircraft.
That's right, actually. So under the Act, if you do interfere with an aircraft, then the police can deal with that as well. So that is in there.
So when
the police can interfere with an aircraft in
no,
operation.
sorry, if they suspect the pilot's been interfering with an aircraft. Sorry, I thought that's what you meant.
No, I meant no. The police are interfering with a pilot who is operating an aircraft.
Exactly,
so they're interfering with an aircraft.
Yeah. So we talked about that before, didn't we? What is their position? So if they come within my 30-meter takeoff and landing zone, and there's a gust of wind, ATI mode, it hits the police officer in the face. Who's liable?
Yeah.
You mean after the cheers die down and all the bystanders go, yay! But I had something I was going to say, I've forgotten now. Damn, getting old.
But there should be the industry representative bodies in whichever country you're in should be standing up and shouting and screaming and saying, like ARPA's in the UK, should be really kicking and screaming about all this sort of thing and saying this isn't on. And they should be representing the people that they pay, that are paying them money to be their spokespeople.
Who?
I tried not to say it, but any industry body, if you're taking coin from operators within an industry, then you ought to represent them properly in all aspects, not just the PR aspects. No one's going to buy it.
If you're filming the policeman with your phone or whatever, and he's just seized your drone or the SD card out of your drone, what's to stop him from seizing your phone on the same grounds?
Well, that might not be used in the commission of a crime. But are you saying, well, the phone, it can be used as part of the controller device, can't it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Because So I'd take the phone out and give them the controller if they wanted to seize the drone and the controller. That's what I would try and do.
Then that would then allow them access to all sorts of other data.
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, you'd never want to get hold of bloody
Bruce. And then if you pull that thread a little bit more, Bruce, under PACE, but also under the Act, they can retain the property for as long as necessary in all the circumstances. And that is going to be a significant issue to those commercial drone operators that have had their drones taken when they've got a job tomorrow or the next day or whatever it may be, right? It's going to be a real challenge.
I've just remembered the other thing. Is it Liverpool and Aintree? Are they not giving out Freedom of Information Act information for? Let's just try and quickly summarize that. Wasn't it the people at racecourses taking videos for the purposes of winning at the betting or something, which is proved now to be actually perfectly legal, I believe. So it's not such a bad thing. But then the police are refusing, I think, to answer questions about that. Do you know anything about that one, Richard?
I might know a few things about it. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, we could speak about the Freedom of Information Act requests. Yeah, I've seen them online because they're there for everybody to see. There's this particular website that a friend of ours goes to quite frequently, and
flyer, yeah.
And it is interesting that, you know, if a police force refuses to provide information under a Freedom of Information Act, then of course they're going to be subject to some form of sanction by the ICO. And in my own experience, as we know with Sussex Police, the ICO got their lawyers involved on 2 occasions before I actually got a copy of Operation Trebor, as we now know what it's called, and everything that goes with that. But that took almost the best part of 2 years, and the ICO's lawyers on 2 occasions before I got that information. So the police do know that, you know, it'll get to a certain point, and then the ICO will sit down with them and work through what information it is they can provide to make sure they are meeting the requirements within that FOI request. And so, but they know that they can push that to the right, because you know, when they get sanctioned, they just say, "Oh, yeah, sorry, ICO, COVID, short-staffed, or you know, whatever it is," and then off we go again. And I think,
of course, I never thought that. I never realised that. Of course, it is.
Robert in reverse, yeah.
It's a clue. If this was in an episode of Morse, that would be a big clue. That's who did it. It's Robert. It's Robert did it. That'd be a big clue. Yeah.
It was Robert in the baggage handling area.
Exactly. He wanted the weekend off. I think it might well be it. Sorry,
eventually, though, they're going to have to provide something, aren't they? They can't rely on the exemptions that are provided under the FOI. So it's a wait and see, I think, in part.
But then all the noise has died down, hasn't it? And all the fuss and worry and flaps died down because it's 2 years later and everyone else doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
And it must be. I'm sure there must be dozens of requests that you could find in all sorts of spheres of influence that prove that that's a tactic. I bet it's a tactic.
Yeah.
Oh, Ian's here. Can't make his mind up at the moment. You're right. Moses Mosely ignored the ICO demand. He's here. He's lurking. He's in the comments.
But what we might find is another investigative reporter from The Guardian might pick it up and reignite it.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Well, the police definitely, and I love anything to do with Merseyside. I love, because of course they're the people that flew their MD microdrone into the River Mersey, and also had that false arrest where they hadn't renewed their air operator certificate, whatever it used to be back in the day. Yeah, they hadn't renewed it.
That's
Then
right.
they did the arrest, and then it got thrown out. So, hooray! Well done, Merseyside. Keep going.
Well, even because we mentioned that horrible thing a second ago, Trebor, Gatwick.
Yeah.
The CAA were on TV, BBC Morning, and they were doing the competition, advertising the competition, drone photography. So nothing like Gatwick could happen again.
Yeah, I know. Now, at this point, I need to check if Ian has actually managed to activate that that camera from behind a VPN. Is it just...
No, because you can't have an easy VPN via your mobile network. You can have it via Wi-Fi, but not the mobile cell. And I can't do it on
why don't
Wi-Fi.
you just connect a hotspot, your phone, to your Wi-Fi?
Can't, because this connects to the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but if that's connected to the Wi-Fi and your Wi-Fi has got the VPN,
Yeah, but you can't connect two devices to Wi-Fi at the same time on a phone.
I'm sorry.
Why don't you connect 5 things to a phone?
Can't you hard reset it and remove the Wi-Fi?
No, I've tried the hard reset.
You can connect
What are you
5
thinking,
things to
Louis?
Wi-Fi.
Just get on an airplane and fly to a country where it's...
And these are all reasons why you want to buy this camera. Link in the description.
Yes.
On my phone, I have a VPN that even connects over the 4G or 5G network. So
Ooh, that's interesting. The one I just had was spitting out when I was doing it on...
Yeah, I had one that worked.
I'll
Every
send
time
you-
I've got to
I'll send you
communicate
the-
with
the
Bruce.
Can I just say, one of the most technical people we know is now going, a VPN doesn't work right. That's quite different.
I never used
And the
VPN.
beauty of this camera is you don't need Wi-Fi. It uses QR codes. You enter the parameters on your phone. It produces a QR code. You shine this at your phone, and it resets the parameters to what you want. It's a fantastically ergonomic device. Who's got the affiliate
How
link
much
again?
you shill? How much are Uncam paying you?
They're not paying me a bean, mate.
Is the link in the description below?
No, sadly not.
You need a new
Bruce,
VPN
again.
insert ad here. Oh yeah, I'm missing out again. Every other YouTube video's got some other VPN, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
What's
Talk
the
to
point?
Nord,
This could be
talk to
sponsored
Nord.
by Nord. We
Yeah,
could
Nord
have-
would do it. And we could also use a bit of manscaping, most of us. Look at us.
Yeah. Ridge Wallet, anyone?
Speak for yourself.
Would you like display?
Yeah. Ridge
Yeah,
Wallet,
I
something
sent
else.
you-
And honey.
I sent you the link here if you want to, and this is the one that works fantastic for me.
ExpressVPN.
Does anybody want a 3D printed barrel? No.
3D printed barrel, did you say?
Yeah.
Just print the
Got
whole
them
gun
over
like everyone else
3D.
does.
Yeah, what caliber?
It's not. It's a whiskey barrel, but there's no whiskey in it. Sorry.
Too bad the image, orange image quality stabilization so
Bruce
so.
said the
Wow, I guess-
I agree.
stabilization was exceptional.
Oh, no.
Bruce, you're holding it wrong.
This is a $110 camera. It's worth every cent, perhaps. I don't know. You'll have to watch the review on my channel.
Yes, yes, indeed. So, right, what other news have we seen this week, ladies and gentlemen, or mostly gentlemen? Come on.
That the FAA doesn't understand
I
English.
know. Yes.
Yeah. I saw there was a thing about a DJI camera that overheats.
Yeah, but as Bruce is alluding
No.
to is the Drone Advisory Council in America have got nothing better to do than to think we're going to start using the word drone as the nomenclature, and they want to get rid of the word NOTAM as well, which I thought was very interesting.
But
Because
I
that'll
noticed
have a
too
very-
that they did change the meaning of M in there. Notice to air something or other. But the it's I've forgotten again. Oh, I need to take more pills.
Yeah, so
It's
I think I've heard on the QT that PDR-A02 in the UK is being looked at. That's kind of on pause at the minute for applications.
and the V-copter. I watched the V-copter thing tonight.
Well,
It's just complex. That
Well,
would be my...
PDR-A02 is the heavy 150 kilo stuff in the UK up to.
Yeah. Yeah. I have been doing a bit of flying, and so that meant I've had a first go at one of these fancy radios with a screen and everything. And
What's that one?
it's a SkyDroid, SkyDroid H16. And don't show the pin code. It's tacky. I don't like
Yes,
it.
this is
really.
the one that looks like the DJI remote, isn't it? And it's based off the same chipset as Shearlink, but just cheaper. And try getting an update for it.
I remember what I was going to say. It takes a while, but it comes back.
The massive manual is the thing that's blown my mind, and end user instructions. It's just so comprehensive. It's taken me all of a few seconds to wade through the single piece of paper that comes with it, and you have to get other things to work. You have to have this little app and that little app in Chinese, and you hit it, go, and you've got no idea what it's doing. So it doesn't feel like I'm using it to control. I don't feel like I'm really connected to it because I don't understand how it works. I don't understand what it's needing to do to work. Is what I should say.
Never underestimate the power of magic. But go back to the FAA thing for a minute. The thing that struck me most was that they've changed the terminology from unmanned aerial system to drone, which shows how little representation the hobby has on that committee, because the hobby as a whole hates the term drone, yet that committee passed the agreed.
Have they actually rubber stamped that and agreed?
No. Well, they have given their approval and they're submitting it to, because they don't make any decisions; they just make recommendations.
That's the Drone Advisory Committee. They've got nothing better to do. They have none of their shonky business schemes have amounted to anything. Right? What are we going to do at this meeting? Right? Let's have a chat about.
And the guy from the FAA said the DAC has plays no role in the shaping of regulation. So what the hell's it there for? Well, it's a sop to, I don't know, somebody. Certainly not the hobby.
Let's go, Brandon. That's the solution. Come on.
Has he gone mad? Did anyone understand that? Did anyone else?
Something about Marlon Brando? I don't know.
I don't know.
Let's go, Brandon. It's the new meme. It's the new meme.
I don't know that.
Oh God, you guys are so old-centric. Come on.
Yes.
You bloody millennials.
Yeah.
Which generation Z here?
I've changed my company name from Unmanned Inspections to Uncrewed. Yeah, it's tax dollars at work. Exactly. Oh, welcome, Think Flight. It is. Yeah. Well, see, that is sort of the line that Patrick would go down. He keeps seeking. So a lot of our FOIAs that have been outstanding in America for multiple years are around the expenses for lots of meetings that have happened. We'd like to see, and we got those really good leaks the other day of all the names of the people that have, in some other FOIAs that we had, that their names have been redacted or somebody sent them to us via other means. But yeah, the stuff we get out of US, we're moaning about UK FOIAs. The stuff you get out of US FOIAs it's just, you don't get anything. It's terrible. But yeah, the DAC is just nonsense. But it means lots of people have made several videos about it, including Bruce. So it's utter nonsense. I see they're already also jigging around with that LANC system and making lots of mistakes with how they roll out the zero.
And EMAP are back apparently. Apparently EMAP have restored LANC authorizations to their system.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting because they were busy going absolutely bust. So yeah, no, that is interesting. Any other news? Or the main news we want is, has Ian managed to fix his camera? No, not yet. No. So on that note, is there anyone else seen anything else before we go? Go in one.
No, only people should have a look at the video series that Dr. and the Trijol has been doing on advanced stuff on ArduPilot. The last one was, it might be useful for you, Gary. control
I've told
of
you
the mission.
twice.
Yeah, for the missions where you can land, disarm, and rearm again, take off, and fly again. So that might be useful for your drone delivery systems.
Yeah,
So-
completely round trip autonomous.
How does that work though? Because if you're at long distance, once you get down on the ground, you're probably going to lose your radio link unless you're doing 5G or some other thing. Because once you get
running on a drone, Bruce, you send a mission. Let's try to make a drawing for a Bruce cat drawing for Bruce. No, it's a mission. It's a regular mission where you land. You can get the command to land, and then you can disarm the vehicle. And after a timer or a button press on the drone, you can rearm and take off and fly again. So it's all remote.
So with my safety hat on, how do you know there's not someone standing over the drone looking down going, oh, this looks nice, as it takes off into their face?
It can be a plane, so it can slam you on the face. But you assume that people know what they're doing. On the other hand,
safety never assumes anything.
But you can also have some fancy NVIDIA computer running and acting as a LiDAR running. If it doesn't see anything around, takes off. Come on, you have lots of ways to ensure that you're as safe as possible.
It gets complicated very quickly. Did I mention last weekend someone brought down a wing drone with a fishing line?
No, I didn't see that with the fishing
so apparently I was told someone happened next door. There was a drone doing delivery in the street, and some kid came out with a surf casting rod, caught the drone, and reeled it in.
Top notch. You probably need quite a braking strain on that thing.
Good lad.
On
I don't know. Yes, but it's interesting that the media hasn't covered it. I don't know why.
Because the drone didn't chop the kid's head off. That's why they wouldn't.
Well, yes. But I got a bit annoyed on my favorite place to get annoyed, LinkedIn, about, just the wing thing is just delivering vanity products, a cup of coffee, this or that or the other. There's places in the world, many places in the world, where children are going to go to sleep starving and freezing cold, etc., etc., etc.
Well, they need coffee too.
Yeah, they also need coffee. It's true. They do need coffee, but it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. As Peppermint Pilot says, the kid was probably snatching the SD card. That's exactly right. He needs to be employed by the UK police force to stand at crime scenes and snatch them out the air with his fishing rod.
They shall be issuing all UK police officers with surf casting rods soon to deal with the imminent threat of drones flying near their operational areas.
Well, the VPN doesn't work, so I'm on to my next trick. We've done the VPN and that doesn't change it.
You have to do the trick that people, when they were playing Pokemon, the fake GPS.
Okay, either GPS or
it
could just be the region setting on the phone. Now, I can't change that very easily on my iPhone, but I can do it on Android very easily.
Yeah.
I won't.
Or there's an even easier way. Take the COVID test, take a plane, and go to somewhere else.
Well, it's not got GPS, so
could it be the store app itself?
No, it's probably now taking it off the region settings of the device. So what I'll do is I'll go and grab an Android tablet in a minute and set that to the US and give it a try on that before I even install the app.
Oh God, Ian, it's a 1 minute change on iPhone. Don't be. Don't be Brandon.
Where's the region settings on the iPhone?
Now I've got to read his link about being a Let's Go Brandon.
Oh yeah.
Code for insulting Joe Biden. Oh, okay.
Although to the minute we've got a massive, because of COP26 in the UK, we have got a massive no-fly area around Glasgow. It's bonkers the size of this.
You wouldn't want to go there anyway. People like Richard live near there, so you wouldn't go there anyway.
Yeah.
We want to meet Greta? Come on.
And I thought it was interesting. And I saw a couple of the US TV stations were set up in Edinburgh. I got very, very confused when I see them doing their
Glasgow.
live stream. They were set up and the Edinburgh castles behind them. Like, what's going on there? And that apparently was the closest they could get to some of them because it didn't book in time.
Well, it's all the same, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all Scotland.
Yeah, it's all Scotland.
The same.
Yeah. Glasgow's locked down, and the UN have taken over parts of it and they have their own armed guards.
They do well.
And that's because
the
Greta's
UN
there.
guys will
She is a threat.
trouble in Glasgow for them if they're not careful.
Yeah.
Greta's so angry she scares flies away. They don't need a no-fly area.
Yeah, I don't know. How did she get there? Did she walk? I don't know.
Rode a boat, isn't it? That's what she does. Sails.
Probably.
So it
It's
looks
like the other guys that went to New York to speak about the climate change on a private plane. So,
yeah.
Well, there was an article in that oracle of all authoritative news, the Daily Mail, about a number of private jets that flew in for the COP26 meeting, and it was like there was 100 metric tons of carbon every day being poured into the atmosphere because of all these private jets bringing Jeff Bezos and all these other people in for the talk about how we're going to save the planet.
last time, one of the occasions I was in Switzerland, it was the Davos conference. And in my office is on the route between Davos and the Zurich airport. In the morning, between around 7 a.m. until 11, you could. The helicopters were one after the other, almost a subway of trains, of helicopters flying above. Everybody discussing the climate, but everybody flying from Zurich to Davos by helicopter. Some nice ones, by the way.
Look, I think now we're doing tourism and travel information. It probably means we've run out of stories. So, going once, going twice, once, twice, 3 times a lady. That's Bruce's song. Oh!
I was just going to say one last very quick thing. We've not really heard anything from Autel on the new drones, have we? You know, we had that fanfare on.
I'm not allowed to talk about mine until after the embargo lifts.
But yeah, you know, there's been. You know,
we have to get Bobby back.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll do that. We'll get Bobby
because
back.
there's been nothing, has there?
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Bobby's back. Right. Once, twice. Cheerio. Wherever you are in the world, be safe. Look after yourselves. We'll see you again, 2100 GMT next week. Thanks all. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.